Everyone. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Katrina. I'll be your moderator for today's media availability. Mon nom est Katrina. Je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. As a reminder, our media availability is available in French or English through audio interpretation, which you can select at the bottom of your screen with the globe icon, and you can ask your questions in the preferred language of your choice. Notre point de presse aujourd'hui est disponible en français ou en anglais, et si vous souhaitez bénéficier d'une interprétation audio, cliquez sur l'icône de globe en bas. Our media availability will include remarks from Troy Charter, Interim General Manager of Transit Services, followed by remarks from Sabrina Pazian, our Chief Safety Officer. Notre point de presse aujourd'hui comprend des remarques de Troy Charter, directeur général par intérim, service de transport en commun, et suivi par Sabrina Pazian, chef de la sécurité. I will hand things over to Troy now.
Thank you, Katrina. Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi. I want to begin by acknowledging that the issues impacting O Train Line 1 service are creating difficulties for our customers. It is incredibly frustrating to see your travels impacted further, and everyone here is working around the clock to address and repair the issues on the two sections of Line 1 that are currently impacted. Sabrina, our Chief Safety Officer, will provide an update on the actions we're taking to address the damage that occurred at the start of service on Line 1 this morning, which occurred near Tremblay and Blair stations. Our team is communicating and collaborating with Rideau Transit Maintenance throughout the day and night. We are focused on completing any necessary repairs to ensure that Line 1 service can be fully restored as quickly as possible. With this in mind, we need to give our Rideau Transit Maintenance the time to be able to complete those repairs, and they are required in order for service to resume in the East End. Over the next day, as RTM completes the necessary repairs to the damaged sections of Line 1, we will adjust the service to provide more service at the East End station, so we'll be able to do that incrementally. RTM's plans are focused on working their way east from Lee Station towards Blair Station. Until these sections of the line are fully inspected, repaired, and cleared for service, replacement bus service will continue to be provided. We'll continue to provide updates on all our communications channels, and we encourage our customers to use the transit app for their trip planning or sign up for service alerts at octranspo.com. Additional updates on the status of repairs on the O-Train service will be shared as they become available. In the meantime, I cannot thank our customers enough for their patience as we work to resolve these issues. I'll now pass the floor to Sabrina, who will provide more details on the work that's currently underway. Thank you.
Merci, Troy. I will outline the ongoing work that's being carried out right now by Rideau Transit Maintenance and the impacts this is having to our customers. So last night, Rideau Transit Maintenance, or RTM, completed the removal of the ice from the overhead catenary system, or the OCS. Prior to the start of service this morning, trains operated east of U-Ottawa to confirm that the system was safe and ready for our customers. Shortly after the start of service this morning, Line 1 experienced two separate power issues, one near Tremblay and one near Blair Station. In addition, a short section of the OCS at Blair Station was damaged, and subsequent inspections identified some damage near Tremblay Station as well. Initial indications are that these issues were caused by Wednesday's freezing rain event. This morning, RTM was able to return two trains back to the rail yard that were stuck out on the line, and one train is in the process of being returned to the yard. Once all the vehicles have been cleared, the crews will begin repairs to the damage of the overhead catenary system at Blair Station. As Troy said, this work is happening and moving from west to east. After the repairs are completed, the overhead catenary system will undergo further inspections and testing to confirm there's no additional corrective actions or work that's required. Once those checks have been finalized and the system is confirmed to be safe, then service on Line 1 will be able to resume. All the efforts are being made to restore Line 1 service safely and as timely and quickly as possible. All of our teams are working around the clock to make this happen. We will continue to provide updates as progress is made and as timelines become clearer in the coming hours and day. Line 1 service continues to operate in the west between Tenny's Pasture and New Ottawa stations, and R1 bus service remains in place between Lyon and Blair stations to support our customers. Once again, we want to thank our customers for their patience and understanding as all the crews work to restore full service on Line 1. Thank you, merci.
Thank you, everyone. I will go alphabetically through each agency. Everyone has a chance to ask one question and one follow-up. Je vais inviter chaque organisme de presse par ordre alphabétique à poser une question et une suivie. First is Arthur White-Crummy from CBC.
Thanks so much for doing this. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So in the Wednesday update, you specifically mentioned arcing in the explanation for what led to the outage, but I didn't see that in either the update today or during the briefing that we're having now. So as far as you're aware, did arcing cause either of the two power issues at Tremblay or at Blair, or was it observed in connection with it in any way?
That's a good question, Arthur. What we're seeing in terms of the damage to these two additional parts of the OCS, very similar to what happened at Lee Station. So there was some extreme arcing, and I think it's also important to note that when we're dealing with weather conditions and when there's ice buildup on the catenary, arcing is something that does happen. It's when it's extreme and prolonged that it creates this problem. So, but to answer your question, yes. There was arcing observed at both those locations near Tremblay and Blair Station, which resulted in those the failures of the OCS this morning.
And can you explain how the icy conditions associated with the freezing rain event can create arcing even 2 days later? I mean, I spoke to an engineer and he tried to explain it to me, and I'm just wondering if I'm on base here, that the ice can leave like a small gap between the wire and the pantograph, and that gap that the ice is creating makes the arcing more likely. Is that kind of how it works? And can you explain it in your own words?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, arcing occurs when there's basically a separation between the pantograph of the train that presses up against the wire that gets the power, and there's a gap occurs, right? So that electricity creates some arcing. So when you have ice buildup, the pantograph is bouncing off the wire, and it creates that gap. So yes, if you have an uneven surface on the OCS, that could occur. But also what's possible is that although they did ice removal across the line, there might have been some residual ice on the top part of the OCS that subsequently melted and then created an issue. But all this is subject to the ongoing investigation as to what specifically occurred in this area, because although we've had challenges with arcing in the OCS at other parts of the line, we haven't seen that in this portion of the line before. So we really need to look at what happened.
That's great. Thanks so much.
And next is Cameron Mahler at CBC.
Hello?
You're a little bit low, Cameron. Your audio is just a little low.
All right, I might talk a little loud then.
Perfect.
So just kind of a clarifying question bouncing off of what you just told Arthur there, Troy. You mentioned that there were power issues at Tremblay and Blair Station. Is that specifically the arcing, or is there something more to that as well?
So what we observed was the arcing, and then we had the power failure, so to speak. So no, we believe that was the cause of the event, or when the event happened, that's what we observed, that's what was caused. We need to find out, as said, exactly what happened, but yes, that's what we're referring to when you say the power issues at those two stations.
And then just to clarify some of what I think Sabrina might have said already, but where exactly are we right now in the process to returning this back to full service, the whole line?
Sabrina, I'll let you answer that one.
Absolutely. So right now we have crews who are working from the west all the way into the east. The ice removal was complete, but as Troy said, there's been fluctuating temperatures. There's been a bit of snow, so they're focused on that. Right now, the next steps will be to remove. There's still 2 trains out there, one at Lee's and one at Blair, and we're working to get them back to the yard. Of course, there's ongoing inspections that need to occur, and they're going to need to repair the damaged OCS at Blair Station, and as well do an assessment and evaluation and likely some repairs of the OCS at Tremblay Station. So all that work is underway right now and happening where they can in parallel.
Thank you.
Next is Natasha O'Neill with City News. I don't actually think we have Natasha any longer. Okay. Adam Boschmay at CTV.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks so much. I guess just to kind of hop off Cameron's question there, is there any estimate for when service is expected to be returned?
Adam, thanks for the question. And I'd like to be able to provide a timeline. I don't have one right now. We will continue to provide updates tonight and tomorrow. Obviously our focus is on returning service as soon as possible. But this morning's events, they followed a lot of work that happened the last 2 days, and it was a series of tests that we ran some test trains overnight. But yet when we had issues when we started service this morning. So, our commitment is that we'll continue to provide updates. We want to return service as quickly as possible, but I don't have a timeline at this point.
Right on. And I guess we noticed also there's a mention in this morning's briefing about no ice removal at Lee Station. I'm just wondering why that is. Is there a technical reason for that, or?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I follow.
Yeah, there's a line in this morning's briefing about that the RTM had completed ice removal across kind of the OCS except at Lee Station. I'm just wondering why it wasn't completed at that one location.
Sabrina?
Thank you for the question, Adam. I think at the time of this morning's briefing, there was actually 2 vehicles at Lee Station, so they couldn't access that portion of the OCS to take the ice off. So there's since been 1 train removed, and there's still 1 at Lee Station. So any remaining ice that's left, they're going to have to remove that as well. But the trains were likely preventing them from accessing the entirety of the OCS from end to end.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Et prochainement, Frédéric Papin, Radio-Canada.
Frédéric Pépin, Radio-Canada. Hello, everyone. Sabrina or Troy, or both of you, if you'd like to answer the question. How can you explain what happened at Blair and Trombley stations? Mr. Charter, you said with the ice extreme weather, there's arcing that's possible. There's a gap created between the wire and the pantograph, but there was no ice this morning. There were no extreme temperatures, and you're talking about 2 breakdowns here in the past 24 hours. How can you explain this, Sabrina? Well, the investigation is still underway. The team is now focused on returning service. But this morning, perhaps there was still a bit of ice still on the wires between the pantograph and the wire. Perhaps it refroze. We don't know exactly what happened. We do know, however, that we observed arcing at these 2 spots this morning. We have to allow the team to do the technical analysis and the investigation. And when we've identified the root cause, we can determine the next steps. The other day, yesterday, in fact, Thursday, I saw the RTM teams using a pickup truck, and in the back of the pickup truck, there was a lift with a cherry picker, like we see for Hydro One very often. And there was a person in the cherry picker who was using a scraper. It looked like the paint scraping tools, something he could hold in his hand. And the guy was scraping the cable, the wire, and the vehicle moved forward, and he kept scraping as he went along. Is this how you get rid of the ice? I thought it would have been a more heavy-duty approach. It seems to be really very, very manual, just one person with a bit of a scraper doing the work. So there are many, many questions about the operation. Could you help us understand what he was actually doing, what this worker was doing?
Je pense qu'ils utilisent, je sais pas certainement la réponse, Fred.
I
Peut-être
don't
que
have the
je peux le
answer.
faire après le midi available
Well,
aujourd'hui,
I
mais
can get the answer for
je
you
sais
after the
qu'il
media availability
y a
today.
plusieurs
I know
façons
that there are
de
several
enlever la
ways
glace. Alors, je
of
sais
getting rid of
que,
ice,
comme tu as expliqué,
and
c'est
as
une
you
façon qu'ils
explained,
peuvent
this is one way of doing
enlever la
it,
glace. C'est aussi
one way of
un
removing the
produit
ice. They can all use a
melt
product
qui peut
that they can
faire
apply
non, melt la glace aussi.
that melts the ice.
Et aussi, il y a quelque chose de plus heavy duty, comme tu
And
as
then there's a more heavy-duty approach that is available as well. It really depends where you're talking about, what station you're talking about, whether the train is there blocking the way, and whether perhaps the equipment or the other methods were being used elsewhere on another part of a line.
Plusieurs de sections en même temps.
Perhaps they were trying to do several sections at the same time. I don't know. Troy, could you perhaps add anything to this? As you've said, we can apply glycol on the OCS. But it's a very manual process.
He was really scraping the OCS when I was there. He was like scraping with that paint. Ça avait vraiment l'air d'un outil pour enlever de la peinture.
It really looked
Et
like a paint scraper
je
to
me demande
me.
si is it
And
efficient?
is that an efficient way of doing things?
No, and Frederick, I'll answer in English, and maybe Sabrina can follow up in French for me, because that obviously this is one of the things that we need to take away. Freezing rain events are becoming more and more common. With global warming, and we need to find more efficient ways to either prevent this from occurring, and because I know of other properties that when freezing rain starts to come, they'll shut down the service because they know that these things can happen. For us, one of our mitigating measures has been running trains frequently to prevent the ice from forming. But obviously, that's challenged in certain type of events. So we need to look at other ways in which we can recover from a freezing rain event. It's one thing to, temporarily halt service during an event, but we need to be able to recover quickly, and so that's something that we need to take away and look at. We talked yesterday at Transit Committee a little bit that looking at heat trace. That can prevent the ice from forming, and if it does form, it allows for quicker recovery. Expensive to implement, but it is something that we need to look at given the issues that we've had and the changing climatic conditions. So maybe Sabrina, you could say some of that in French for me.
That was quite long to translate,
I
so
know,
I'm not
thank you.
sure I'm gonna cover that.
A little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy with that also.
Oh, sure,
Okay.
okay.
Thanks,
Yes,
Fred.
Merci,
And
Frederick. Merci.
And I'll just add that, like, it's what I was trying to say, and sorry, Fred, I didn't prepare myself, but I think they were trying to, like, all hands on deck and use, like, different people at different sections of the line, because what you're describing, like heavy duty equipment, it was out and being used. Like, my thinking is in the essence of trying to be timely to remove all the ice on all the sections from end to end. That's I would think that that's likely why that method was adopted. We typically use multiple methods, and the root cause will really help us determine some next steps here. So thank you.
Parfait, merci. Prochaine, Gabrielle Lemarquand de Radio-Canada.
Catherine de Marquand de Radio-Canada. Hello. I had two questions. I'd like to know, first of all, whether we're actually talking about two cable breaks here, two line breaks this morning. One at Tremblay Station and the other at Blair Station. Two breaks. Yeah, one at Blair. That did happen. And at Tremblay Station, where we're still trying to ascertain what happened. We've seen sagging, but we don't know whether it's completely broken. Okay, fine. Yeah. I think at Tremblay we're looking at a burr. At Blair, it was completely broken, I think. So my second question is, did both incidents happen at the same time? Do you know exactly what time these occurred? What time did they happen? Can you tell us? Almost simultaneous. 10 or 15 minutes apart, I would say. I don't have the exact time to hand, but was when service started this morning. 10 or 15 minutes after the start of service this morning. Thank you very much.
And finally, Shane Seguin at Rail Fans.
Hey, Troy, Sabrina, thank you for taking our questions.
Sure.
My first question had to do with Tremblay, but so that was just answered. So my second question is, OC Transpo has outlined several measures to manage the winter conditions and ice buildup, including running additional trains, to keep the pantographs moving along the contact wire, applying glycol. However, the issue near Lee Station is not new. The current tactics do not appear to be preventing further incidents. And there were also reports of intermittent power issues affecting trains in that area prior to the breakdown around 1 p.m. where the wire snapped. So at what point does OC Transpo consider suspending service proactively, especially in that area, if conditions appear to be deteriorating?
Yes, Shane, thank you for that question. That's obviously one of the things that we need to really investigate and look into as to, our current operating plans. Um, whenever we have these types of events, we need to do a debrief afterwards and look at where we need to adjust. And that's one of the key things that we need to look at is where we need to adjust. We looked at the weather that was coming, and we felt that, with the frequent train service that was going to be operating at the time, it was going to be sufficient to keep, any sort of ice forming in that location. We do suspect that it was the accumulation of ice that caused the problem, but we still are, we're still the early stages of doing the investigation. The team has been primarily focused on service resumption. But your point is bang on. We need to look at that, and if we need to make adjustments, not only to how we mitigate it, but how we can, whether or not we continue to operate. That's something we need to consider. Shutting down the service is not something we take lightly. But if it means we avoid these types of situations where we're down for extended periods of time, that's something that we need to consider.
Okay, thank you for that. And my follow-up has to do with like we have sources and they've been telling us that RTG or RTM don't have the crews and the personnel in Ottawa to effectuate the repairs to the OCS. They're coming from Toronto. So is there any plan, because obviously this is the second incident in a couple days. Is there any plans of them having this kind of support on site in Ottawa or having a rapid response for when things like this happen in the future?
Yeah, no, it's a good question as well. So, RTM and in their maintenance provisions, they decide how best to maintain the service. And it is a combination of staff that they have here on site, and then contracts that they have for, emergent situations in rapid response. When it comes to OCS repairs, this is something that you do not expect to happen very often. So they have a contract in place with one of their subcontractors for them to attend and immediately put those repairs in place. But they do have staff here that they do have technicians and power technicians that can respond to many types of events, but certain types of things they outsource that to specialized firms that that do provide that quick response.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. That's all we have time for today. So this concludes our media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse aujourd'hui. Thank you.
Merci.
Merci à tous.
Merci.
Merci à vous.
Thank you.